Once upon a time, there was a rabbit who had a secret pen pal. Waiting at the pier, her paws itched in anticipation. It had all been leading up to this. They had sent things back and forth to each other for a while. Some of them were letters, and others were packages full of feathers, shiny rocks, and dried fruit. But after a while, she had a strange empty feeling in her chest, so she went to the fox doctor for advice. He wrote a prescription in barely legible script. Go to the lighthouse. It was a weird prescription, but she packed her bag and went to the pier. The badger renting the boats out had an eye patch on, and with his free eye he looked at her camera suspiciously. "Don't worry, I won't take your picture," she joked, and he seemed to relax. Not a selfie guy, she guessed. After she paid the fee, he pushed a pamphlet and a blanket into her arms. The pamphlet had info about the river, as well as a map on the back. And the blanket? "It gets cold out here," he replied gruffly. How surprisingly considerate. And so she stepped into the boat, wondering how much her arms would ache at the end of all this. Renting the boat was the easy part. It was the navigation that made her wary. She wasn't great with directions, and up ahead of her was a long tunnel, dark and damp. It looked like a shortcut on the map, but it wasn't popular. Taking a deep breath, she pushed onward. This wasn't the time to hesitate. Doctor's orders. As the light at the end of the tunnel grew closer, she saw something that made her frown. If she kept taking this river, it would take her in a different direction, the wrong direction. Fortunately, up ahead there was another pier. She sighed. Time to stretch out her legs. In the forest, she hiked up the hills, moving steadily until she reached a meadow. She pulled out her camera and took a ton of photos of the rocks, the flowers, strange bugs, and even of the view. The photos weren't for her, but for her pen pal. Wondering what their face would look like when they got the photos, she smiled to herself. Time passed quickly, and she didn't realize it was getting dark until she shivered. Wow, it really did get cold out here. The badger renting the boats wasn't wrong. Rubbing her hands together to warm them up, she continued the hike, onward to the lighthouse. When she reached the top of the hill, she finally saw the lighthouse. It was huge and imposing, standing proudly over the houses nearby, as though its light was protecting them. She couldn't see the ocean in the darkness, but she could smell it and hear the waves crashing. Now that she was at the lighthouse, she was stumped. What now? Looking down, she could see the entrance to the lighthouse. Maybe she had to be inside the lighthouse for the prescription to work? The ache in her chest hadn't gone away yet. Would it hurt to look inside? Hopefully, she wouldn't disturb anyone. Inside the lighthouse, there was a lone turtle knitting on a rocking chair by a warm stove. Not bothering to greet the rabbit, the turtle pointed towards the stairs on the right, and then went back to knitting. Guess the turtle didn't want to be disturbed. As the rabbit climbed the stairs, exhaustion was finally catching up to her. Hopefully, this would be her last stop, she wondered to herself, as she looked into the sky. At first, she didn't see anything, as the strong wind made her close her eyes. "Hello?" she called out. What was she supposed to do? The ache in her chest was still there. Then the wind died down, and her gaze focused a bit. Rubbing her eyes to clear the grit, she saw that in the distance there was a glowing shape. It glowed like the moon, but it looked like a star, hovering in the sky. Could it be a fairy? The sparkling figure reflected in the rabbit's eyes. Curiosity gripped her so strongly she had to figure out what it was. Leaning over the railing, the feeling in her chest turned into something different. Getting closer, she gasped, realizing the glow was a floating bunny, brightly smiling as it flew down towards the lighthouse. What was happening? "You came! I can't believe it!" it sang out, and the rabbit was in awe. "Who are you?" "I'm your pen pal, silly. I've been sending packages to the fox doctor to drop off since I don't have an address, being that, well, I live in the sky." So that's how the fox knew where to send the rabbit. The rabbit couldn't speak. "Are you disappointed?" the glowing bunny asked, looking nervous. "No," she said, giving a flustered response. The rabbit was feeling something different. The feeling in her chest, that sadness and loneliness, had been replaced by a hopeful one. "No, I'm just really glad. I finally got to meet you."